Hello, and welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. Hello, and welcome to a very special episode with the Conscious Communion and Sweet Bailey. Bailey is a multidimensional artist. She's a musician, a pole dancer, a botanical artist, and a Gene Keys guide, called by the great mystery of life. I met Bailey in January and was so magnetized towards her presence, and I'm so grateful to now be in community and in communion and space with you. To share space with you is a deep honor. So thank you.
Same.
Yeah. Welcome. Yay. This is such a treat. Every time we land in space and in conversation, it feels like a portal opens up and it's here for us.
Yeah, you don't get that with everybody.
Mm-mm.
I noticed that as well with us. I'm like, okay, there's some ease here. There's like something here.
Absolutely. Yeah, the first time we met, I felt that immediately. We were talking for quite a while.
It was like a buzz almost happens.
Absolutely.
And like the connection never like gets disconnected.
No, it doesn't. It felt like magnets. It really did. Your presence is so magnetic. And I think that everyone who gets to meet you, and as an artist specifically, it's that electricity that draws people in. I got to hear you sing in person, and when I heard your voice, there was such a deep resonance of this warrior spirit, and I got emotional. I got so emotional. And to know that resonance in your voice was like bringing something forth in me and in others in the space was, it was just really beautiful to witness. So thank you for just ushering in what spirit calls forth. I think that is just something that I notice in you, and there's such an integrity that you hold in that specifically. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was like one of the first times I'd ever really used my voice in that way in front of people, because that's like an alone thing for me. And so being in that circle, you're talking about the circle, right? Being in that circle, having our friend Jenny, which I think you've had on here before, like do vocal empowerment to lead us in, like that, just the fact that we were all open, that we were all opening our voices, that like allowed my channel to like really open and for me to like step aside, because I haven't been able to sing in front of people because there's too much concern, you know, of if I'm going to hit the notes and all that stuff. And so in that session, it was like, I wasn't thinking about whether I was going to hit the notes, and it felt very much like ancestors were coming through, voices were coming through of all the people that have wanted to share their voices before me, you know, and all the people that want to share their voices with me now. And so, yeah, that was a really special opening for me as well. So I was grateful to receive, not just from you, but from multiple people, that feedback of like, that it resonated in some deep way. And that's why I want to sing, really. That's the whole point for me.
Yeah. And it's coming alive more and more through you. You can even see it in the way that you interact and engage with people as you've started to share your voice more and more. You can see it as you engage with others. And so I would love for you to just share a little bit about your most recent experience and the spaghetti dinner that you were able to really share so much of your craft with folks, because I know that in itself has just kind of been a catalyst.
It was huge.
So can you just share a little bit about that and what it was, and then kind of your creative process into what was birthed in that space?
Well, spaghetti is like a gathering that my friend Carly came up with before COVID. And so she's done a bunch of different ones. Like there's been movement nights, comedy nights. There was one where people read like their first kiss stories, but they wrote them down and put them, I think, in a hat or something. And then you'd pick somebody else's and read it. So just like really cute, sweet community, like fun, playful. And she always wants people who aren't like typically performers, or people that haven't like, that aren't known quite yet as performers, to like give a stage, give a space to those people. So I love the synarchy of working with people like Carly, because she creates the whole thing. She gets the space, she serves spaghetti dinner to everyone, she gets bottles of wine, and she just makes it so sweet. She's a Libra, so she brings in the beauty and understands how to create the space and the environment. So that's what it was. And I had done a spaghetti performance before COVID also, but it was just pole dancing by itself. And that was the first time I had pole danced in front of people. So she's given me these opportunities to really like show up in a space that's super curated towards intimacy and communion. Like other performance opportunities can be a little more performy, I guess. And you feel a lot more anxiety going into those, because it's just, that's how the space feels. That's how the whole thing feels. And so I really appreciate what spaghetti is, because if it wasn't like that, I wouldn't have been able to show up the way that I did. So that was created first. And then she invited me to perform like 2 weeks before the performance. So not a lot of time to prepare something. And it was, but I kind of love that. I kind of love just like a little bit of root chakra energy, just like it's time, let's go. And then it like, sometimes it's the right channel and it opens up and it comes through really quickly. And so I said yes to it. And then I started, feeling into how I was even going to do it, because like I told you, I was hurt, like my arm was hurt, and it was supposed to be a movement and flow night. And so pole dancing would be like the most obvious choice for me. And I was like, I don't even know if I can dance. And I'm feeling really called to sing right now. And I'm like, could I sing and dance and like take some breaks from dancing and like throw my singing in there? And so basically, as I was home alone, like preparing for it, I've been singing and dancing and performing in my bedroom since I was like 12 years old, or younger really, but like 12 years old is when I started writing my own songs, and got my pole when I was 17. But I've always been in my room just like dancing and singing and like basically creating my performances for a very, very long time, like 20 plus years. So my desire with this performance was like, I don't want it to be a performance where I'm nervous about it, where I'm anxious, where I'm trying to prove something. I want this to be like our circle that we had, where I just like opened it and it just, that I would share something so vulnerable that like it would just blast through all of my insecurities, which is what it ended up doing. So I fucked around with what the hell I would do with dancing and singing. And I knew I was going to freestyle most of it. And so I had a song chosen that I'd written, and I was only going to sing part of it and then let the rest of it play while I danced. So I didn't even have to sing that much. And then I wrote a brand new song 7 days before the performance. And it was like one of my favorite songs I've ever written. And so I was like, I'm going to add this on top of it. And that's been my downfall in the past, is I just plan way too much for things. And then I can't actually execute it. It's just like, I just pile too much on. And so in this case, I was like, I know I'm meant to sing both of these songs. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't even have like the longevity vocally yet to like perform a lot. And I also am hurt, and I haven't danced for 4 months. So my body's out of shape with the pole. I was just like, I don't know how the hell I am going to pull off this performance. And so, there was one night where I was like singing, and I was like, oh my God, I'm too nervous, like to actually sing in front of people. The first couple words that come out at the beginning of a song, it's like I'm trying to find my way, you know, like that first moment when your throat first opens and the words are the first note. I'm like really worried about that first note, because I'm like, I always have that happen whenever I performed, where that first sentence is just like me finding my way. And so I was waiting for my computer to upload something. So I just laid on my yoga mat and I just started singing my song a cappella, super, super slow, like as slow as I possibly needed to to connect with every note and to connect with my breath, just slow down. I'm a fast-paced human in general. And I just slowed myself down and I realized like, this is how I'm going to open the performance. And so the whole performance, like the beginning of it, I am starting behind these walls that I built, and the walls kind of were representing this bedroom that I had spent all of these 20 years in, never feeling confident enough in my vocal abilities or any abilities really with performance to step onto a stage. And so for safety, I started behind these walls so that I could get comfortable up there in the space. And then I sang my song a cappella on the microphone, super slow like I did. And I was laying down on the ground. And so I just put my body and myself in all of these positions behind these walls, super slow, all of these things to support me into entering into the performance and like getting comfortable. And I literally started with as many breaths as I needed. So before I even started singing, I'm just like breathing into the microphone, like I'm letting people know I'm nervous. You know, I'm letting people know that this is a lot for me, like in a way. I'm not saying it, but I'm like breathing and they can tell that I'm like dropping in. And I decided like, what if I just let the whole audience see my process of how vulnerable this is for me, how nervous I feel, how much time I really need to get into this. I just gave it all to myself. And then the music started playing after I did an a cappella set. And I was like yelling in this a cappella. I was like letting it all out. I was opening my throat chakra, but I'm behind these walls, so it feels really safe. And then I stand up and I sing the first part of the song. And at some point I had to like just throw all the walls down in the performance. So now I'm like out. And then I start just like dancing and doing all this stuff. I move the walls out of the way at some point, and then I'm on the pole dancing. And after that song's over, I try to catch my breath. I gave myself a whole minute to catch my breath and I still couldn't. And so the next song was like my new one I just wrote 7 days ago. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can barely breathe. And I'm like, well, they're just going to have to know that. They just saw me on the pole. Like they know I'm going straight to singing. And so this song's a lot more like edgy, like more like attitude is in this song. And so I'm just like, like they are just clapping because they can tell I'm like barely breathing. I'm just fucking giving it to them. Like I was giving it to them. I was looking in people's eyes, which I've never done. Normally I perform off to the side because I'm so terrified to look at the audience. And this time I was just like barely breathing, just like fucking giving the attitude. And I was like, whoa. I was like blasting myself open. And then I went and danced on the pole again. I just would do anything I wanted. At some points I was just doing like hand motions. Like it was as if I was just in my bedroom running around the stage area, just like doing whatever and getting on the pole. And then I invited all the other performers up with me at the end and we all danced together. And that was how it ended. And I was just like, I was totally blasted by it.
So good.
Yeah.
And I've seen you come alive even just like since then. Not that you weren't, because you always have been, like since I've met you.
There's more walls to break down.
But there's always more to break down. Exactly.
And I wanted to do it metaphorically and physically in the performance to be like, this is what's like, it was a self-ceremony. It was a self-ceremony in front of a bunch of people, like a bunch of like 40, 50 people.
And everyone got to witness you and your journey, and that really, I mean, it was an initiation, and you also got to usher in whatever now is happening in your here and now, which is fully like you're on this artist trajectory that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And you get to just kind of experiment and see what gets to come through your openness and through you saying yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what does that feel like? Because I know it's been, I mean, there's been a lot of changes as well. So like you had kind of like a 9 to 5, right? Like,
yeah, for a little bit.
I mean, it wasn't 9 to 5. It was very early in the morning, but it was like a full-time job.
Well, it was actually 3 days a week.
Oh, it was only 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And still, you were working a lot. So it was very strenuous.
It was the job itself that was like strenuous. The fact that it was like production line.
And corporate.
Yeah, it had its own
energy.
And I was working on other stuff on the other days, like my own stuff. So that's why I only did 3 days, because I was like, I won't have any time for my stuff if I do more than 3 days. So, and I still ended up getting hurt from that job. So it's like, even with that, that schedule, I was overworked.
You're out of alignment though, too.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. And then can you share about your arm, that it was hurting? And then.
Oh yeah. I heard it, in February, like Valentine's Day is when I heard it, because I was working in the flower industry. And so Valentine's Day is just crazy. So it was just too much at once. Basically got tennis elbow. And I know a lot of people know what that feels like, because every time I say it, people are like, yeah, I've had that. I know what that's like. And so it was just really painful. Also masculine side of the body. So like just my typical kind of like where I overwork myself, how I'm proving myself, and also it was a job in flowers, and I'm a botanical artist, but it wasn't my job. My business myself is very feminine. Like even the name of my business is Yvonne, and it's like a goddess of nature. And this was very much like warehouse, corporate, even like some of my managers, like just like there was some stuff. It was a lot. It was a lot of drama to maneuver. So there was like literal drama happening, and then physical drama happening at the same time, and feeling kind of undervalued for my skill set after 12 years as a botanical artist, like going into an assembly line production version of that. Just, I felt undervalued by myself and by everybody really there. But they couldn't really offer me more. So, the universe decided to shut me down. And so, yeah, I was hurt for like 4 or 5 months, and I still had to work like 2 of those months. And I finally was like, I have to be done. And so I quit, not knowing where I was going to go next, but I basically had to let myself heal. And then it was hurting. I performed one other time on the pole, and it made it worse. But it was that performance was less. It was less free. It was more like planned. It wasn't the expression I was looking for. And so when I did this performance, like literally right after I was done, and during the performance, my arm just like miraculously healed, I would say. Yeah.
In real time.
Well, like literally like didn't even feel it afterwards. Maybe it felt like I needed to stretch it out a little bit. Like that was about as much as I felt. Whereas before it was like, I'd pick up a coffee cup and it would be like radiating pain. So something
happened. Yeah. Something burst open within your spirit. And it's like, tension is interesting.
Yeah.
Because we hold tension in these places that don't feel like they have the ability to be free. And so whenever our boss, it's very interesting that it's your right side too.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
So that in itself is just so fascinating. But I'm so grateful to hear that you, by sharing your voice and by standing in your truth and by utilizing spirit to let you be your own authentic guide, like that got to set you free from the tension that was not serving you in your physical body. And then also just like your gift as a pole dancer, because I've seen you and it's really incredible. Like obviously you were an athlete, and that I love because we share that in common. And you can see that you can use your athleticism in this way, but it comes to you in this organic, really free-flowing way. So what does it feel like in your body for you to use your body with that amount of strength, but also to thread in that creativity layer? What does that feel like for you?
It really is like pole dance. I always say is like this balancing masculine feminine situation, because it takes so much strength and it takes so much flow for it to really look like beautiful. Like to have both of those in balance is what really makes it what it is. And I pretty much only freestyle. Like, I don't hardly ever plan. I might plan my tricks I'm going to do in a certain order, but everything is really freestyled. And so it's like a blank canvas every time I go up to do it, you know? It's just kind of like, I have a little bit of a plan of like where I'm going to hit it here and here and here. But otherwise, like, I'm just going to drop in and let go. And at that performance specifically, it was way easier than it's ever been to drop in and just let go. And my body just kind of, I've danced for so long. It's like, I can just be like, I can just let my body go and trust that she's, you know, she's going to make the shapes that she wants to. And it's going to look like, if you're dropped in, it doesn't really matter what you do. Like, the expression that comes out is going to be epic and beautiful no matter what.
1,000%. I mean, it's like you sharing in the circle when we first met, and you not necessarily knowing what would come through, but then having the conversation with folks after the fact and knowing that it resonated so deeply for so many others. And that in itself, like, you got to be a mirror for so many other people. And there was something in that frequency that you birthed and that you let go of, because it sounded like you were letting go of something.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
And by activating that in others, like, you got to be the mirror for like what other people needed to set free for themselves.
Yeah.
And so your work just feels like that. It's like this mirror of sorts to break out of the parameters. We've talked about this. And not follow the trajectory of others, but really set the path for yourself.
Yep. And that's liberating for people.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
To witness and to watch. And
people have done it for me, you know? Like, we're all just doing it for each other all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that this is the way it's coming through my form. You know, like, this week we were in the gene key of divine will. And I didn't even read it. I didn't even get into it. I just thought about those words, divine will. And like, what is the will of the divine just in me? In this form, I like to think of it as an instrument, you know, like the divine's like the air that is blowing into the flute. The flute is this body. I'm a flute, you're a trombone, whatever. Like, the air that's going through is the divine that is making it animate and do stuff. But the instrument itself is this body, this DNA, this genetic code. And so I've just been contemplating a lot this week, divine will, and like, what is the will of the divine through me? And so like the ways that I'm a liberator for other people, that's just like, literally I'm letting the air of the divine blow through this flute, and that's what's coming out. And that's the most natural, innate thing. Like, I don't even have to question it. Like, divine will, the will of the divine in you is just what is. And it's when you actually step out of the way that you get to like hear what the instrument's actually trying to play. And that is the most liberating for others, because people can feel when that's happening. And then it hits them where they need to be hit in their own body, spaces that are stuck that want that liberation, because it's so pure, just like.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, and I know that to be so true for you, because I can feel it every time we're in space together, like that's just like who you are. And I know that in itself is taking courage. So how have you been able to enable yourself to like move through those patterns of crunchy, sticky goo to like, you know, transform and come out of the cocoon?
I mean, it's in every moment, like that gathering that we were at, like the circle, it's like the part of that also needs to be recognized is that like 10 people went before it got to me. And so I was like slowly building up everybody was giving me a taste of liberation. And by the time it got to me, I was like, I feel safe now to like do this. And so I guess one of the things would be putting yourself in safe community scenarios where there's like, I have so many beautiful friends who facilitate these kind of like safe spaces for expression specifically, whether it's like my friend Jessie, like doing ciphers, like rap circles. The way he leads people into it is just like, it's slow and it's sweet and it's easy. And all of a sudden you're freestyling. You know what I mean? Like, or like Jenny leading us, like with vocal empowerment. It's just like, and then being in a community doing that and getting to try it out. Like I think that's one of the huge things for me, especially with things that are more performance vibes, like using your voice. That's a big way that those blocks get blasted, is in that kind of community holding, where it's safe and everybody's doing it together. Totally. I would love my concerts to start with vocal empowerment every time or something like that, you know, where like everybody in the audience is also like, I'm sure that will happen through the music too. That's my hope. But like, it'd be cool to have a friend or somebody lead some kind of drop in at the beginning of everything, so that everybody is getting to do it together. I like the togetherness. I have no Leo in my chart, like none. And so I always feel like my performer self it's not necessarily bent that direction. It's very much like, I've had such a long journey letting having my throat chakra open, and being seen has been a really long journey, like letting myself be seen in certain ways. And so I really just want to bring people on that journey with me usually. And so I think doing things in community spaces where I'm being unlocked, is really helpful to me, because it sees what I want to bring more of, or what I want to facilitate more of if I'm going to be a performer. So yeah, I guess that's one of the ways.
You already are a performer.
Thank you.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think I'm just really excited. Like, I know you are so in tune with what spirit calls forth from your behalf. And I'm excited to see where that leads, because you have such an innate gift in the sphere of performance. And that could be even with your beautiful botanical art that you create and curate.
Yeah.
It's so vast.
It's all
encompassing.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that since I was little. Like, I would go to friends' houses and create extravagant sets and then bring their parents in to sit down and watch some prepared something. And that was just like very innate. You know, back porch singing to Santana with my neighbor girl, with dresses on or whatever. And like, the parents are all like drinking their beer, sitting on the patio, and like, we're just like, all right, everybody watch us. But as a kid, I was so fucking confident in that. Like, I have a video of me in preschool, I think age 5 probably, and I'm singing a song for like the graduation, and I just like come up to the mic, like right up to it, and I'm just like, I just yell. I totally drown out the 2 other people that are singing with me. And I am just like, I'm the best, like not the best, but you know what I mean? Like, I have this energy of like, I'm the shit, without knowing that at all, because I'm 5 years old. So I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just like, that's what the energy feels like. Like, I have no self-awareness, I guess you could say.
Or you did, and you were just so confident. And that's what's great about being a kid and tapping back into that energy. That's where we almost need to lean back into those places and spaces within our inner child and within our childhood that didn't make us feel safe, so that we could be that all the time.
Yep.
Like, so I'm curious what that was like for you to, it sounds like you had to excavate at some point. So what did that rediscovery look like for you to kind of go through the shadow? Because you were that, and then you weren't that for a period of time. So what was that period of time like for the dark shadow? And then to then excavate that, to then be in this iteration of Bailey now.
I mean, I guess specifically with singing, at that time, I wasn't a good singer as a little girl. I was just a confident one. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't like hitting notes. You know, there are little kids who do, who like start early and like can really hit notes. And I was just belting out, you know, not on tune. And then when I was little, I was chosen for a lot of performances at school and singing. And so I was like doing that for a while. I was at theater camps. I did a performance at the local, whatever, art collective thing. And I don't know, I was just really like feeling it for a while, probably till I was 10-ish. And 10 is kind of when a lot of trauma happened, or just like a lot of big stuff happened. That kind of shifted my whole reality. And I think that was the moment where like a new girl came to school, and she was a beautiful singer, like had actually trained since she was young, and I got kicked back. And then I got my first guitar when I was 12, and my started singing, and I got made fun of by some people in my life, and just like kind of lost, like, I was like, I guess I can't just be confident. Like, I don't have any talent. Like, it's kind of how I felt. I was like, I don't actually have talent. So maybe I'm done. But I loved writing songs. I loved writing songs so much. I had my guitar. I'd write hundreds of songs a year, just nonstop in my bedroom, writing, singing. I sang constantly. But my throat chakra, you've had April on here as well, right? So with April, I had a session with her where she called or found out that I have a past life where I was mute. And I also think lives are all happening simultaneously. So I'm in some dimension right now, I have a mute experience. And so she called through like this statement of you didn't even have a voice in that life so that you could have a beautiful one in this one. Like so that you would understand the power of your voice, because you're coming from a place of not having it at all.
I just got chills.
Yeah. And so I see why my journey's been so long, and I really am. I know I'm a beautiful singer. It just like, it feels like all of this like blackberry brambles were in my throat, and I couldn't actually get my voice out. It was like being mute. It was like, there'd be moments where I was super open as a teenager in my room, and I would be singing a song and I would hear that I was on tune, and I'd be like, oh my God, there it is. There it is. And then it would go away, and I couldn't find it again. And it's a whole, singing is a whole somatic experience. So if I didn't have like a certain alignment, it's like I wouldn't be able to find it again. I'd go back into like a blocked state, and then it would sound shitty again in a way. And then I would randomly have these moments of openness where it was really beautiful. And I was like, okay, if that's there, it could always be there. I just don't know how to access. I don't know how to get to it. And then I ended up dating a guy in high school who brought me over to this guy's house who had a recording studio. And I was like 16 or 17. And they were just all kind of like nerdy guys. And they were like, oh, a girl, So they like let me record on nice equipment, but I still felt so bad at singing that I would just send them all out of the studio. I'd be like, get out, let me record by myself. And then they would come back and they'd play it on full blast, my voice. And I would just be mortified. I would just be like, oh my gosh, it's so bad. And he's like, I'll pitch correct it. So he would pitch correct it. And I did a few performances with them. And all the performances I ever did as a teenager were really incredibly embarrassing. But something about my incarnation would like push me to do it. I know I can't open my throat chakra right now, but I have to be performing.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so I would just do it. And then I would always be like, why did I do that? It was so bad. It was so embarrassing. And I would just keep doing it. And so it was kind of like the will of the divine was like, you're meant to do this.
Yeah.
But the past life was like, it's going to be a journey. And then I always tell people, I'm like, singing for so long has felt like literally masturbating on the stage. It's like, everybody, here we go. Like that's what it feels like, because your throat is like the same anatomy, actually. I don't know if you knew that.
I did.
Okay.
I did. And I think it's really interesting because even in receiving, right, to share, like the pleasure center, that is in itself, like there's so much, especially for so many, I think for so many people, I was going to say only for females, but it's not only for females. There's people that don't know how to receive openly and intimately. And it's all connected.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
100%.
So it's so fascinating to me that you were still so willing to just move through, because that's you moving through your shadow without you maybe having like the conscious awareness as like a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old. Like you were moving through the shadow as you were doing it.
Yeah, I was.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I didn't understand why it would, I literally felt like I would go into like a trance and like commit to something and then walk up there and do it and just be like, what? Why?
That's so good though.
Why? Yeah. And so like, I felt like I was meant to write music. I felt like I thought in music. I felt like I never was trained like officially, but like I was telling you earlier today, like I can play the piano because I can feel sound and I can find where it feels good and where it sounds good. And it's just innate for me, and it always has been. And so I was like, why am I given this gift, but I can't sing? Like, why would I get one side and not the other? And so then a couple of years ago, I got a computer program for making music and realized I could start using like loops that were on this program and do like more dance music, which is what I really wanted to make. Like I was stuck with my acoustic guitar for a long time, and it's like I couldn't actually make the sounds I wanted to make. I wanted to make like the all-encompassing, like, you know, let's trance you out a little bit, or like let's really express something big. And growing up in church, like, as you know, like worship was just this all-encompassing, like you could just so blasted by it. And I just wanted to make music that blasted people in the same way.
So good.
And I knew exactly what to do because we've experienced it for so many years in church that like, you know exactly how the body feels in that worship state. And so I was like, I want to make music. I guess I call my music now, like it's an emo worship pop dance party.
I love that.
And that's like, emo music was a big thing for me in high school.
Same.
So emo,
I didn't know that.
Really? Yeah, I love emo, I love worship, and I love pop. I love dance music. So I'm kind of like, can I combine the three? And then I just started playing. I started freestyling over just like beats I would make, and it would just flow. Like most of my lyrics are freestyled in all my songs. Like one take, what comes out, those are the lyrics, and I find out what they mean afterwards.
Spirit just comes on through, and you're just open.
Yeah. And that's the best way for me to channel is musically. Like I can do it writing. I haven't done it out loud very often, but like just talking.
Yeah.
But if I am singing, the channel just gets so open because I'm lost in the music that like I just let the words come, and then just something forms out of that. And because I'm using a program now where I can record like multiple vocals and harmonies, I can combine like 5 of my voices together into like a sound. And I don't have to be so perfectionistic or worried about my voice anymore. Like my voice is getting more and more open, but even in the way that I'm making music, like I'm just wanting to make sounds, and I can finally like through this computer program, basically just like make the sounds I've always wanted to make and the feelings I've always wanted to make. And so now I'm just like way less concerned about like how great I can sing. And that's actually making me sing better.
Yes. And also, again, to the permissioning and to the mirror, that it also helps others feel embodied in their own skin to sing, or let a noise, like set a noise like free.
Yeah.
Because I love to sing, but I know that I do not hit the notes. But I have so much fun doing it that I will do it. I do it in the shower, do it when I'm home, I do it with my sound bowl, and it sets something free, just how I show up with the world and 100%. How I interact with the world. And everyone can learn something from that.
Yep.
So by you sharing your craft in this way, that gets to invigorate others to potentially explore what it looks like for them to just explore. It doesn't need to be anything. It can just be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Play.
Yeah, and that's how I make music now, is like, it's so playful. It's just like, I'm fucking around and it turns into something. And then I'm like, I make a lot of weird sounds. Like half of my takes, like I'll sing a take like normal, and sometimes I'll be like, what if I was like singing it really quiet like this? And then what if I was like, like doing it with sounds instead of the words? And like, what if I, it's just all playing, and then all this crazy stuff comes out, and then I layer it all together, and it's like, you never know what it's going to make. And then it makes itself.
Yeah.
And then it feels like very divine. And then who am I to like choose what notes I'm even hitting? Because maybe these are the notes that we need for certain frequency activations. How,
the ones that are suppressed.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. The ones that are suppressed are the ones that need to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And if no one's making these sounds, then no one's hearing these sounds, and no one even knows that like that can live in their own body.
Yeah.
And that's just a reminder. Sound is such an awesome representation of what we're feeling somatically.
100%. Yeah.
But like, we don't know that until we can feel it.
Yeah. And I mean, all of us turn on certain songs in certain moods, and we can shift ourselves. Like, music is one of the easiest ways to shift a state, or if you want to really indulge in the state, you can turn on some music, like an emo song, to really get in there.
Love a good emo song to make me cry.
Screaming is so good. I want to learn to scream.
Yes, I can totally see
like
you.
In a way that won't hurt my.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, then that's like, there's so many emo bands where they have that screamo thing going on, and that makes you feel like, so how good. Could it not?
I love it.
I do too. We have to talk music later. I'm so excited.
Some screaming.
Yeah,
together.
1,000%.
Let's get it.
I do want to talk about Gene Keys.
Okay.
Because I know that it's been really transformative for you and how you understand the world. Mm-hmm. So where did you find it? How did it come to you? Because I know it probably found you a bit, as things do.
Yeah. Well, I had heard about human design first from somebody. And then my group of friends kind of got into it for like a moment, like pretty quick. Like, we're still into it. We still know about it, but it was a quick moment of going through human design, because then Gene Keys came through. And my friend Jesse, who leads like the cipher circles and stuff, he was like, I found this thing that's like kind of from human design, but it's called Gene Keys. And he just brings the book over to our house one night when the group of us are hanging out. And he decides to read through each of our life's work, Gene Keys, like the top energy of it. Mm-hmm. And I had never heard a description of what my essence and energy feels like it's doing in the world. Like, I never had heard something so beautiful. The guy who wrote the Gene Keys, Richard, he's really a poet more than anything. And he's, science and mysticism is kind of how he's like fusing together, but he's doing it through the energy of a poet. And so I was just like, wow, like this really resonates. Like, and in a way that other personality type tests or astrology or any of that stuff, like this just like was a heavy hitter reading on me that I was so poetic and beautiful that I was like, I need to, like, this feels like what I want to go into next. This is drawing me in so much more than any of the other things I've studied or gotten into. So that was it really, that moment. And most of my group of friends got into it after that. Like both Jesse and his wife and my best friend Tiffany are Gene Keys guides as well. So we're all pretty into it.
It's incredible. When I found it and then pulled my chart, I like you, there was nothing really that had resonated in that way. And I'm still very much learning about it because it's vast. There's a lot.
The book itself is like...
There's a lot there. And it just, like you said, to read what Richard has so eloquently designed and curated, but also it really does feel like a blend of science and mysticism. Like it's been channeled.
It's channeled, and he's had like a huge history of studying these ancient things. So
yeah, and then both of those married everything, and then just magic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, and I just love how it goes with the genetic code, because everybody knows about DNA. Like that's like even my energy in the Gene Keys, like part of it is that I always want to simplify things down to their essence so that the most people can understand it, like a far-reaching ability to be like, how do we simplify something down into like the most, so that all humans can access it? Like, and because we all understand, or at least know, that the DNA has 64 parts, codons to it. That's how many pieces there are of the DNA. That there's something to that. Like each one of those parts of our DNA has an expression that creates a human. We have 64 ways that we kind of express, which is archetypes. Like warrior would be one part of the DNA, mother would be another part of the DNA, and on. Sensual, priestess, influencer, like there's all these different archetypes that are in all of our DNA. We all have all 64 of these energies, and we all express all of them in different parts of our life at different times. But there's, this idea that the moment you're born, you're like this picture of that moment in time in your genetic code. And so your code is like activated in different ways, which make us different people, which make us act different, have different geniuses, have different gifts, different things that we play out. Some of us might play out a little more of a warrior archetype than others, because it's something that's like a part of our expression for this lifetime in this instrument, right? And so that just like really simplifies Gene Keys. That's why it's called Gene Keys, because it's about the genetic code. It's about like, we have 64 ways that we kind of express in the dramas that we play out on planet Earth. And so here are those energies in your DNA that are activated at this moment, and they're contemplations, really. I don't want to box anybody into anything, but they're really just like, read this and contemplate it, like feel into it. You could read any of the Gene Keys, any of the 64, and you would resonate with it because it's in you and it's something you express. But your main ones will tend to hit a little bit heavier.
1,000%.
In my own experience and from what I've seen. So
yeah, I mean, everyone that I know that has learned anything about their own genetic makeup through the Gene Keys has felt the same way. There's been a deep sense of resonance in ways that, I mean, I definitely feel that in tropical astrology and in human design, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And there's also things that don't feel like they're fully expressed in reading about human design and tropical astrology.
Yeah.
So it's just really fascinating that Gene Keys does feel all-encompassing.
It's like, I think he says in one part, like, it feels like it's speaking to your cells.
Yes, 1,000%. Yes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes. And I know that when I started to delve in a little bit more, there were things that felt like I was reminded of these things that I never knew, but that I've always known. Right. And so then that got to help me see myself more clearly. And then that got to help me delve into my shadow a little bit deeper. And then I got to access more of my gifts.
Exactly.
So and I loved the way that you described it. It was like perfect for someone who might not know about what the Gene Keys
I've been asked that question a lot over the years. And there's been moments I've been caught off guard and been like, how the hell do I explain this thing? Like, this seems so dense and intense. And, over the years, I'm simplifying to find a way to just say it.
Yeah.
And if I have like a 5-second conversation, because that does happen to me, where they're like, "You're a Gene Keys guy. What is Gene Keys?" And I'm like, "Okay, I have like a minute because we're about to like sit down for something or whatever, And I'm like, "Oh my god." So yeah, I've worked on distilling that.
So good. I love it.
And that's what I find most interesting about it too, is that relationship to the DNA. Because I love science and mysticism.
Same.
I want to find a way to like communicate that. That's really fun and like interesting, intriguing. I'm just intrigued by it. I've always been intrigued by the patterns of the universe, especially after doing psychedelics.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, there's something about patterns. There's something about patterns that we should look at maybe in the physical realm. Things seem to be repeating in patterns. There seems to be like a whole mandala pattern of existence. I don't really fully understand it. It's very psychedelic, But then this kind of grounded it down and like, okay, as far as humans go and expressions and the ways that we act, this is the most beautiful way I've seen it described. And so that really drew me in to the Gene Keys specifically. And because each of the 64, gives you not just who you are operating at your highest, but it also shows you like your shadow. So you get like 3 different words to contemplate: the shadow, the gift, and what he calls the city, which would be like, the city's kind of it really is like when you fully have stepped aside and the divine is just channeling through you. It's kind of like some of your last lives on earth. You're like maybe more in a acidic state because you've literally stepped aside. But we all access our acidic state at times. You know, we all step aside at times, and
at times,
and then it comes through, and it can even be like a moment where somebody saves somebody else's life. Like that acidic state is when you just disappear and the divine will is just flowing, and you're like doing it. That's like the highest expression. And the gift is kind of where a lot of us operate in day to day. And then the shadow, of course. But that's a good thing to know too, because I've had people want to look up like their parents' Gene Keys or somebody's Gene Keys and be like, well, my parent, like they're not empathy. That can't be their gift. They're not empathic at all. They don't feel it like that at all. And I'm like, well, the shadow of empathy is discord. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah. Discord makes a lot more sense with their energy.
We just had a technical scenario happen. And so I think it's fun to just be able to be in the process of what actually happened.
Yeah.
And we're in the midst of Mercury retrograde. And so information is coming through and how we handle things. Like, we're chill. This is happening. We're flowing.
Yeah. For some reason it wanted to drop out on us. Now we get a little restart.
So sweet. And thank you for, again, beautifully describing the Gene Keys, for circling back to that, and for making it make so much sense.
Here for that.
Yeah. The simplicity is really helpful. I think I have the tendency to like overcomplicate things and make them very grandiose. And sometimes it's like, nope, not sometimes. Every time you make it simple, things just get a little bit easier.
Yeah. I want everyone to be able to resonate. I don't even want it to feel like disconnected from just status quo, like that anybody can access this kind of contemplation. I mean, to be honest though, the language is a bit out there, but I think that's why I like being one of the, like, I'm a trained Gene Keys guide. So I'm like one of the holders of the transmission, you could say. Yeah. And so there's part of me that feels like I'm meant to distill Gene Keys a little bit into like the common language, or like, I just want everyone to feel like they can connect to that.
Your bridge.
Yeah. That it's not like in some elite spiritual zone. You know, I think growing up religious, like I'm sensitive. I feel like I'm really sensitive to things going that direction. So I just want it to be like a sweet contemplation for people to like really feel themselves and like unblock. I think that's a big part of it. Like, I love liberation of any kind. So I'm just kind of like, this is another way of liberation, liberating your like most natural energy.
So good. Yeah. Because you've touched on it now more than once. I think that it would be really fun to talk about coming out of church atmosphere to then creating your own spiritual practice and what that has looked like, because that in itself is a full-on liberation.
Yeah.
That's a reclamation. So what has that process been like for you to come into and embody this beautiful reclamation and this remembrance of all that we are without the dogma?
Yeah. Well, it goes back again to probably the same kind of age range that I was belting out my singing voice. When God was really simple for me as a kid, where it was just like the connection with the divine, the connection with just being a kid and like not having so many ideas in your head yet, not having so many rules, or not even really having a religion fully like infiltrated yet. Like just being at that really simple place where like I just am a divine being because that's all I know. Like I came out of the void, and it's just like what children know, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like the reclamation has been, I've returned almost to what feels like Christianity sometimes to me. Like it's like almost the same feelings. Like I'm making worship music in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's no like language that would kick anybody out at this point. Like all the way that I connect to it now is just like, it is what is. Just like when I was a kid, it is the fact that I'm this form in the 3D realm that is an arm of God, you know?
Yes.
If that makes sense. Like
it does.
It's just like the divine is seen through these eyes. And I still feel like a child of God and God at the same time in a way. Like I just feel, I don't know. It was challenging for a while because when you grow up having certainty given to you, like literally like you have the answer. Like sweet. Like it was so easy. It was so easy for so long because it was like they told me this was it and I just trusted them, and I did love my relationship with God as a kid. It was really beautiful, and but it was hard to shift from like thinking I knew the answer to the everything.
Yeah.
To not having that answer anymore, and then just like spiraling for a while. But I've always had really beautiful community, and so the community part never left me. Since I was born, I've just had church community, and then now I have like Wild West community, you know, a bunch of renegades. But it's like I've never lost that part of life. I never became lonely, really. I mean, we've all been lonely. Like you can be lonely even with people, but I've always been blessed with a community of people who are like diving into the mystery of life together.
Yeah.
And so it's like church never really left me. I just had a time of like, well, what the hell then? What the hell what's the point of it? You know? Because before that I had a point of it, and I had an answer, and it was all certain, and it was all like, just, this is what is. And so that was probably the hardest part, is just like floating after that for a while, and then feeling like I came back to meeting God again, like meeting that feeling of love in my body again, that feeling of like awe. I even found one of my baby books recently that like no parent actually writes in, you know, like it says like, oh, at this age they started doing this. And like, I don't know, maybe somebody has a parent out there that wrote in this book. But
mine didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine had like nothing in it, but there was a few things written in there. And one of them was like, what's like the phrase or the word that she's saying the most? And it said, wow.
Oh,
and I
really?
was like, and that to me
My
is like,
heart. I literally cannot. That makes so much sense.
Right? And so that kind of is like the coming back for me. It's like coming back to just, wow. Like the wow doesn't know what's going on, but it's just letting itself be in a state of awe. And so I think I dropped back into that and let myself feel connected to source again outside of Christianity. And so it feels really similar. And I think Jesus is a badass. So it's
Me
like,
too.
And a lot of things that he was saying, like a lot of spiritual people now are like saying again, and Christ consciousness coming back through. So I'm feeling that in all of us, and resonating with people of all sorts, like without this like name of Christianity anymore. It just feels so like we really all are part of the kingdom of God, or whatever you want to call it. I personally don't and have never gotten triggered by a lot of church language. I know some people do.
I have. I'm better. I feel better now, but I definitely went through a period.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, Lord, that was like, oh my gosh, that got me like right in the gut.
Yeah. I can see how that would be for a lot of people. I've just never had that experience with the language. I think it's funny sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to use that language anymore. But even saying kingdom of God, I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? I'm not saying kingdom of God. That's the same language as I would use before, but now it doesn't have that same meaning, even though it kind of still does.
I know exactly what you mean. No,
it's hard to explain.
It's hard to explain, and I think it's nice that in the folks that we know, that there's a lot of other people that have that same similar experience with the church, and then coming back to this remembrance where there is such a similarity. When you're worshiping, it feels like you were worshiping in church.
Yeah.
And like you can feel that same feeling.
Yeah.
Somatically.
Same somatic feeling.
Yeah. It's like a gut resonance. Like, this is truth.
Yeah.
And it's just like the great mystery, like reminding us that it can all be the same, and it is the same. We've just made it complicated as humans in the 3D.
I just worship the wow.
I love it. It's so good. And I can so see that. Like, Bailey is a little baby just saying, wow.
Yeah, wow. It's like, okay, wow. Okay, wow. Yeah, it still comes out.
I mean, how could it not, right? It's just like there's so much to be mesmerized by.
And that's like, that pulls me back into gratitude, you know, because I'm a moody bitch too. I can go dark and depressing, and I'm not always in my wow, you know. Actually, I could still be in my wow. That's the beautiful thing about that is like, I've learned that my down times are as extravagantly wow as my up times. It's just a different vibe.
Totally. But
you're like, wow, this is dark and painful.
But it's going to take me to new heights eventually.
Like, if this is how low I'm going, imagine how high I'm going to go. Wow.
Yes. The juice, like, I think you and I can both resonate in that there's like such a learning process and curve that comes from accepting the shadow and leaning in as far as you actually want to go to get all the freaking juice out of whatever that experience is. Yeah, it's good.
I mean, so many of the people that are creative, like the downs are like what mainly do it, you know? I think that's where you really get your juice and your creativity from. If I don't go through drama, I could literally like have a hard time writing stuff. I'm like, I need some fucking drama to come through. I need to feel something so I can find this frequency.
Yeah, totally. I think that's why we're here. Like, to be a part of the human experience is to experience the joy and the suffering, and then the joy in suffering, because they can both coexist.
And they have to. Like, we don't have experience without them. If you only have one side or the other, like, you don't have experience.
Yeah, I mean, you as a botanical artist, like, you're playing with nature and you're co-creating with nature in such a physical form. And that in itself is like, yeah, we're just nature. So when we get to actually just accept ourselves as being a part of all the seasons and cycles that we get to see, we'll be better off.
Yeah. The thing that helps me the most, actually, when I'm in like different zones or modes or moods, is to just go lay on the ground and have that reminder of like I might feel like my spirit will go off into the cosmos and is off in the cosmos right now, like doing stuff. And after death, that this body was born of this literal dirt, and it's going to just die into this literal dirt. And so when I lay my body onto the earth and like feel the resonance of the earth, I used to like feel so hippie when I was saying this, because I've never resonated with that culture. And so whenever I like talk about laying on the earth, I'm like, no, but really, like, it's like not just a thing that like people who seem like in a different subculture do. This is the other thing about like everything's accessible to everyone. Like, laying on the earth isn't just something you do if you're a weird person. Like, it's it's like we're all from the earth. Like, literally, like, just lay your body down on it. Like, try it out, especially if you're someone who lives in the city and really doesn't get that very often. Like, I'm like often surprised. I'm like, okay, people don't touch the ground with bare skin very often, actually. It just, something happens. Like there's literally the Schumann resonance, like the frequency of the earth that just like takes our nervous systems back into a place that feels good again. And you feel like you're being held by your mother, like the mother, the whole mother. And it's just something you have to do and experience. I don't even like to put words to it, but
yeah, because you can't. It's, I mean, you can try, and you can try to articulate it, but it will never incorporate the wholeness and the full capacity of what it actually provides you.
Well, and I just love when something is so simple and just accessible.
Yeah.
It's like nobody, I mean, maybe somebody could tell me they don't have access to ground. Like, but I just feel like that has to be one of the most accessible things.
Even at a park.
That there is.
Yeah, you can, I think that most people, even in cities, like big cities, they can at least find a park.
Well, and even if you can't lay your whole body down, like just putting your hands,
1,000%.
like just
feet.
If all you can get is a pinky in there, like.
Yeah, definitely. Laying up against a tree is also like really great. I definitely think though laying on the ground it's one of those things that can really help you lean into your nervous system. That and breath, and like you layer the two
together.
Boom, baby. So juicy. So juicy. Oh, so good. And I'm in Bailey's home, and she lives on this beautiful property where she has so much access to nature. So that obviously is something that was brought to you for purpose.
Yeah. I needed it.
Yeah. It's clear.
Honestly, the trees are in my songs, I swear to God. Like,
but it's reciprocity too. Like what you get to receive whatever the earth is giving to you, and vice versa. Like you are a steward to this land. Yeah,
and I get to walk around and be like, I am here on the behalf of trees. Like, I feel like I get to bring the tree energy into the city in a way. Like, I'm connected to these oaks like crazy. And I didn't connect to trees before this because, again, it seems weird. Like, years ago, it seemed really weird. I didn't have this perspective for a long time. And then once I started like slowing down was a really big part of it. And like, actually, I needed support. I didn't have the support of my closest people for a while, not because they weren't available, but because of just what we were processing. Like they had to be separate from me. That's a whole other story. But the point is like, I literally had to go into the forest and just rage sometimes, like scream and break sticks. And then like, just in this emotional state, like literally laying on like the side of this oak tree, I was like, I feel so held. I literally feel held by somebody. Like all of a sudden I realized this is somebody.
Yes.
That was the first time it clicked for me because I needed it. I was like, I felt so alone.
Ooh, I felt that.
I needed somebody. And I didn't realize it could be a tree. And honestly, it's so nice because they don't talk in words. And I'm like, I actually don't want to be comforted by somebody who talks. Like, this is a frequency comfort. This is, I mean, they've communicated to me in words sometimes. Like, I have a lot of claircognizance. I don't remember what it's called, but words come through for me really easily. And so I have talked to them in a way, but a lot more of it has been like frequency exchange. And then I feel like I'm literally bringing them into my groups of friends or whatever. Yeah. Like they're hanging out with us too, because your friends influence you. And if your friends are trees, there you go.
It's a good influence.
You're part tree.
It's a good influence to have. It's so, so sweet. I feel that on such a deep level. And then it's funny because when I notice myself being really busy and then I feel like ungrounded, the quickest thing I know to do is to go sit your ass down, lay on the dirt, or go hug a tree.
Yes.
So I did that literally, what day was that? Sunday. I spent so much time just like hugging on trees. I went on a hike and I just was hugging some big redwoods.
Stopped when whoever,
oh my gosh, I did not even care if somebody was like watching me. I was just like, whatever. Like I'm the weird hippie. I don't care.
Yes.
Because it feels good.
It's normalized. And more people are hugging trees than ever before.
Yeah, totally. Especially in Portland. We're good. We're good.
Let's be real. Yeah. If you're not hugging a tree, then people are like, I can't believe she just walked through this forest and didn't even say hi to any of them.
Are you kidding me? Exactly. We didn't acknowledge one.
People were like appalled. Like, wow. You get judged for not doing it.
Exactly. Thank you so much for everything you've shared. I do want to ask a couple final questions. One being, how can people find you if they want to work with you? I know that all feels, obviously, if it's a good energetic exchange for you, which I appreciate about you, it needs to be honored from you first before it becomes an exchange. And you also hold space so beautifully. So if people are interested and maybe they can at least start the process, what does that look like?
There's a lot of things going on. I'm multi-dimensional, multi-passionate human. Like I'm always doing 5 things, but the current things are, Instagram, Cosmic Communion. It's great that we have such, like the communion is such a good word. So Cosmic Communion is like my main Instagram page. And then I have like Instagram pages off of that, but I think I have them all linked on that page. So just, they can, maybe you have show notes in there. Yeah. It could be in show notes too. But then I think, what is my website? That's also linked on my Instagram. Literally, if you go to the Cosmic Communion Instagram, everything is linked in the
Perfect.
Link. And then I think I've changed all my websites recently. So Yvonne has a website, and also Intimacy Castle is coming through soon. And those will all just be on there. Let's just say that. Let's just go straight to Cosmic Communion on Instagram, and you'll find everything you need.
That's the portal.
And you can DM me there, if you can't find anything, and I'll just do that.
So good.
Send me an astral message, and maybe like we can psychically set up a time. Any way you want to try it.
So good. Then you'll really be able to know, like, also if it's a feel. So might be the move.
yeah. So let's say astrally is the only way.
So good. And because you've lived such a beautiful life, rich with experience, if you could offer one slice of wisdom from what you've gathered thus far, what would it be?
One slice of wisdom. Oh my God. That. Like more laughter. That breaks me every time. And I think lately, like, that's the wisdom that's been coming through for me, is like, just like literally let your body laugh more often.
I freaking love that.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah. I want to do some laughing circles.
Oh, we should.
Why not?
Just get somebody to start giggling, and then that's just like the ripple.
Somebody did it in breathwork once, and I was like, yes. I was like, because we all release energy in different ways, but laughing is like not one that a lot of us get a ton of. And I don't cry super easily, but laughing can lead me to crying. So instead of saying like, release your tears, like I'm like, maybe laughing is actually a portal for a lot of it.
I think so.
And the universe is kind of laughing at us all the time. Like it's all a big joke. All my psychedelic experiences, I feel like it's like laughing at me. And at first I was like, fuck you. And then I'm like, oh shit, I'm in on the joke. I gotta just get in on it. So
good.
Take it less seriously, if you can.
Yeah, that's a good word for everyone. Yeah. For everyone. I think we all take ourselves a little too seriously.
And also, take it seriously while you need to, and then laugh later. But at some point the seriousness can drop. I know we go through portals where it feels like you have to go through the seriousness, and that's fine. But
it all exists.
Yeah, exactly. Let's laugh a little more.
So good. Thank you so much for this time, and for your vulnerability, and for sharing so much of yourself and how you show up as a creative in the world. I think that in itself is so inspiring. So thank you.
Well, thank you for giving my instrument a place to play.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Of course. I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for meeting us and being with us and sharing space. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you're at. Sending you all the love and all the peace and all the blessings.
Hey there, it's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too, so if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.